It's 14 hours.
North to south, coast to coast, around the world, this is the Wells Report. Greetings, my name is John David Wells. Good to have you here. Thank you very much for being a part of our broadcast. You can do so by jumping into the chat room that is currently appearing on your screen. This is kind of a work in progress as we seek to find ourselves in a position where we have a little better technical show. At this particular moment, we're working on it. I was talking to, as you can see, the studio is still under construction, and pretty soon that hole right there, this hole right here in this rack, is going to be filled with other things, pieces of equipment, etc. Same thing with this one right here. We'll get this all worked out. But at this particular moment, welcome to Friday and the Wells Report. The President of the United States spoke last night.
Over the last 2 decades, more school-age children have died from guns than on-duty police officers and active-duty military combined. How much more carnage are we willing to accept? How many more innocent American lives must be taken before we say enough, enough? I know that we can't prevent every tragedy, but here's what I believe we have to do. Here's what the overwhelming majority of American people believe we must do. Here's what the families in Buffalo and Uvalde in Texas told us we must do. We need to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. And if we can't ban assault weapons, then we should raise the age to purchase them from 18 to 21. Strengthen background checks, enact safe storage law and red flag laws. Repeal the immunity that protects gun manufacturers from liability. Address the mental health crisis, deepening the trauma of gun violence and as a consequence of that violence.
And so what you have there is you have the President of the United States putting the leftist gun agenda on the table one more time, even before the children from the Uvalde shooting have been laid to rest. This is a circumstance that is essentially exploitative, and it's damaging. It's damaging our nation, and it's awful. Now, that being said, the president brought up a few things there that we do need to speak of. He called on lawmakers to ban assault weapons, high-capacity magazines, with the nation reeling from 3 mass shootings in the last 3 weeks. He lit a litany of these issues: Columbine, Sandy Hook, Charleston, Orlando, Las Vegas, Parkland. And this time it's a call to action that we, or they, do something with this. The problem with all this is that this is all filled with all kinds of things that are not going to happen. There will be no repeal of any kind of immunity laws regarding our nation's weapons manufacturers. The only immunity law that they should be exposed to is if their weapons misfire or malfunction based on a design flaw, and this, by the way, has happened. Remington, their Model 870, it is the Model 70, had a trigger issue that under certain circumstances, it would fire without touching the trigger. And that led to lawsuits, and that led to fixes. But those weapons are functioning just as they're supposed to. Therefore, there is no reason to sue a gun manufacturer. No, the problem is twofold, as we discussed yesterday on the Wells Report. Why should anyone who was unauthorized to carry a weapon on school grounds actually be able to? All of these legislative remedies are not designed to actually solve the problem. All these supposed legislative remedies, all they're supposed to do is forward a leftist totalitarian agenda. And that's the way I see it. The news continues. The president talked about raising the age to pick up an assault weapon to 21 years of age. He talked about enhancing background checks. The idea that banning assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, all of this vanished in a vaporous ooze of absurdity when following the January 6th attack, the riot on the Capitol building. Following that particular riot, what ended up happening is that the Congress put razor wire and fencing around the Capitol building and filled the entire area with 26,000 troops, pointing high-capacity magazines at us, real weapons of war at us. This after no one involved in the original the Capitol riot on January 6th showed up with weapons. None of them showed up with weapons at all. All that being said, why were weapons pointed back at us? Because that's who they were pointing those weapons to and at. The president said on several different occasions that the Second Amendment is not absolute. I have a question for you. Should it be? Should the Second Amendment be absolute? Antonin Scalia is famous for saying that it isn't. Was he wrong? I have to be honest with you. A lot of the reasoning that I have behind my ideas about weapons in the United States have to do with the current people who are involved in politics in these United States. That's a circumstance that I believe requires a great amount of thought on all our parts. These people are not capable of this common sense that they keep invoking. Invoking rather. They don't have it. They can't come up with common sense. They can't balance a checkbook. The incompetence of the United States government is obvious to anyone willing to look. And yet no one does. The president went on to say that he spent time with the family members. That was a good thing. The melodramatic 56 candles lined up on the walk to the podium representing all 50 states and territories was meant to symbolize the gun epidemic that will take a national response to solve at a nationwide scope of the crisis. In point of fact, it's not the government's business what happens in the states of the United States of America. And this needs to be illuminated as well. I'm going to make this plain. We are in the United States of America. This is not the Federal Republic of America. The federal government is not responsible for imposing its will on the states. The states need to be able to make their decisions and make their determinations based on what the citizens of the respective states believe should be the case. And that is all. This is a power grab. This is an attempt to create a totalitarian government in the United States. And I know that's a melodramatic word. I know it. I understand it. I get it. But it's upon us. There are a lot of things that we have to talk about. And there are a lot of people that are very concerned about what the government is trying to get done. Much of what they are discussing will never, ever happen based on the fact that the people of the United States do not believe this government works to their benefit because it doesn't. Because the American people have seen a dishonest government essentially creating crimes to then base legislation on. We're going to be talking about that too a little bit later on today. Should the Second Amendment be absolute? Should we be able to go down and buy any weapon anytime at any place? In point of fact, I don't think so. Here's what I believe. I believe that the American people should be armed at an equal level as a United States soldier, an infantryman, a rifleman. They should be able to use the same equipment, be able to purchase it as they see fit. Should that happen at age 21? Perhaps. The president did make a good statement yesterday. He said, people say that 18-year-olds are allowed to have weapons in the military. And that's true. And he also pointed out that they are under serious supervision the entire time. And that's also true. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't believe that it's not just AR-15s for me. What it is for me is any kind of firearm. Pistols are already mandated to be sold to anyone over 21. And in that, it's possibly reasonable to be able to move forward. Enhanced background checks. It depends on what the enhancements are, obviously. Should the this so-called gun show loophole, should it be taken away? Probably. Once again, the devil is in the details. I personally would never sell a weapon to anyone without them getting a background check first, which I will gladly pay for, but I'm not going to do that. That's my own personal decision. Kelly Lyons, who listens to us in Oklahoma, the great state of Oklahoma, says, it's amazing all those people who are anti-gun fled liberal states and moved to Texas and Florida. Why would that be? Because it wasn't the people who were anti-gun. It was the politicians and the government. Correct. This is a chance for the government to lord over the people, just like they do in Australia this very day. Because what they ended up doing was they ended up giving up their guns. So did England. And it was a mistake. It was a mistake there. But at least those governments, those countries, lived in a totalitarian mess for centuries. The only country in the face of the earth that is not a totalitarian or has a totalitarian past is the United States of America. This is a brand new deal. And it is magnificent. But the Second Amendment cannot be infringed upon, especially by these people. These people are not capable of being able to handle basic government things. Politics has permeated the federal government so badly at this point, we don't even have a public health effort that isn't poisoned by politics. The National Police Force, the FBI, poisoned by politics. Most of the other executive branch agencies are also poisoned by politics. And why does that matter? Well, let's take the FBI, for example. The FBI is an organization that enforces federal law. The laws are written down. There are decades of cases where the law was applied, and they're all painstakingly kept track of. If there's anything close to settled science, to mix my metaphors, it's national federal law as enforced by the FBI from a standpoint of what database of material we have to be able to make decisions about those laws. Now, that's straightforward. But if you inject politics, suddenly you begin to start enforcing laws based on the politics of that person versus the politics of that person. And we've seen that. How have we seen it? I will be more than happy to tell you. That's coming up in just a couple of seconds. The Friday edition of the Wells Report today. Thanks very much for being with us. You can, we're at some point, we're going to have telephones that you can use to call me on the telephone. As a matter of fact, in that particular machine right there, will allow me to speak to you on the telephone. God willing. Cross your fingers. And is it because I'm just incompetent? No, it's because Frontier Communications is incompetent. They can't get somebody here to install my phone lines. It's so much fun, but look at it this way. There's no way to look at it. It's just plain stupid. You're listening to The Wells Report. Back with more coming up in just one moment. Okay. Ooh, that's a good one, Ann. I'm going to talk about that. So what's going on? How's everybody's day? Talk to me. Put your lips up to this chat screen. Talk to me. Let's see here. I need to turn this up. Oh, okay. Hang on. Okie dokie. I'm back. I'm sorry. That was, you got to watch me take a phone call. So there you go. Let's see. If you like the show, be sure to click on this video. Absolutely. You are listening to The Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. It's Friday. We're going through the news. We bring you the news. We bring you analysis of the news. We analyze for fact. I make commentary, and then we debate the commentary. Okay? If you're watching this on a on some streaming service. You know, we are on a bunch of them. We're on Twitch, and we're on YouTube, and we're on Facebook. If you like this broadcast, make sure you share it. Whatever you do, share it. And then click the bell so you get updates as to when the Wells Report will be on live. All right? So whatever you do, make sure that, make sure if you like this show, make sure you click like on the video. It's important to us. Okay? Do all of these things. Share, light the bell so that you know when we're going to be on the air, and then click like as often as you can. Please. The more the merrier. So we were talking a little bit about how President Biden is trying to nationalize gun law. No, that's not going to happen. It shouldn't happen. It's just not going to happen. The states need to make these decisions. We, the people of the United States, need to ensure that politicians of this ilk that would actually try to infringe upon any of our rights, let alone just the Second Amendment, be immediately removed from office. It's necessary insurance. The president did not speak about crazy things. He did a few crazy things. He did not everything he talked about was crazy. Raising the age to buy a firearm to 21, I could talk about that. Improving the background checks, I could talk about that. I certainly would like to hear other people's ideas about being able to walk into a gun show and sell a gun without a background check. I'm willing to talk about that. But at this particular moment, I'm not willing to talk about any of it with the people that are currently empowered on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. They are not capable of it. They are not capable of the common sense that President Biden keeps trying to talk about. There is no common sense. None. We were talking about that. Anhoy Guzman says when it comes to background checks, she has no problem with strong background checks for guns, but I want the same checks for entry into the country and voting. I don't think you need a background check for voting, but you certainly need to be able to prove who you are legally with a legal document. I would agree with that too. So I was talking a little bit about how politics permeates things and ruins them. And the politics of these people trying to ruin the Second Amendment, for example, follows right through to what we have seen with the Sussman trial that just got finished with in Washington, D.C. A rigged jury turned aside a strong indictment against a lawyer who lied to the FBI. Now, remember something. Remember, during the Trump administration, an official lied to the FBI and his life was ruined. Now, this guy lies to the FBI, no problem. Absolutely no problem. Turned it aside. Not a big deal at all. So what happens is we have this unequal protection under the law because of politics. Let me give you another example of this. The Sussman trial implicated Hillary Rodham Clinton in what everyone knows is actually true. The grandest of all political dirty tricks involving spying on your opponent has just so far been swept under the rug. The first opportunity that John Durham, the special prosecutor, had to be able to bring up the fact that Hillary Clinton was orchestrating this, thus making it a conspiracy, was turned aside by a rigged jury in Washington, D.C. Can you think of another time when a president or somebody who was running for the presidency spied on their opponent? And what happened to that president? Yeah, it was Richard Nixon. It was Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon was part of a scheme to spy on the Democrat Party. It was a conspiracy. And it led to the resignation of the President of the United States. As a matter of fact, had he not resigned, he would have been indicted, which is why he resigned in the first place. That's what happens when you have political enforcement of law. Instead of a nation of law, we have become a nation of politics. We have to get away from this. The federal government has no business trying to impose its will on states, especially where the Bill of Rights is concerned. And make no mistake, the Second Amendment hinders totalitarian political thought. And we've also seen them trying to hinder the First Amendment of the United States, free speech, freedom of religion. The free press has sold itself out. The free press sold itself out. And so the First Amendment is also under attack. The Fourth Amendment is gone, thanks to the Patriot Act, but that was a Republican show, wasn't it? It was exploited madly by the Obama administration, and those of us who watched the Patriot Act get passed and signed into law, we said at the time. That, okay, I have some trust in the people that are creating this law, but what about the people that come next? In comes the Obama administration, and suddenly the Patriot Act is used to start busting city councils, county commissioners, political enemies. Not a whole lot of not a whole lot of terrorist prosecutions were there, let alone trials. So just exactly why did we create the DHS? Why did we actually pass the Patriot Act? Why hasn't it been repealed yet? Those are all good questions. The President of the United States thinks that the Second Amendment is not absolute. Should it be the absolute law of the land? Also, does the Biden administration, in your opinion, does the Biden administration actually want to disarm Americans? Yes or no, and why? Reach out to the Wells Report for Friday. Thanks very much for being here. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment. All right. Anybody who wants to buy a gun needs a background check. True. Chicago has some of the strongest restrictions, yet they have the highest gun crimes in the country. Correct. Voting checks for citizenship, only registration in one state, city, or county. Yes. Gail Marlowe just says yes. Don't forget the D.C. judge who refused to allow pertinent evidence. Yeah, that's also true. Scumbags. Absolute scumbaggity. Last time I voted, they did not ask me for my ID. I called the very next day and asked the election board and aired my concerns that anybody could have walked in and voted. I was told that they should have asked for my ID. Come to find out, no one from the election board conveyed that to the people at the voting booths. Corruption at every level. Correct. Completely correct. Oh, yes. Test. I changed the shot a little bit. What do you think? Better, worse, the same? Just thought you'd like to know. Yes, they do want to get rid of our freedoms. That is completely correct. You are completely correct. Don't forget to share the video. If you like it, don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to ring the bell. Don't forget to light the bell. John David, I've now asked me if my show was live. Yes. Okay, so the people who are listening on at ODOT, yes, this show is live right this minute. Yeah, I am sitting here in my studio, which is still under construction. As a matter of fact, that part of the studio is going to get constructed first. It's like, really? Yeah. Where's the sign? The sign is over there. I have to take it down off the wall because I have to paint the walls. I have to paint the walls. I have to do all of this stuff. The ceiling is going to be black, and then there's going to be charcoal, like dark gray right here, probably with some black highlights. And then we're going to put some sound deadening in here so that the room gets a little more cozy. And then I'm going to get the actual dining room table where the Wells Report was born, and I'm going to be broadcasting live from that table. We'll also have a set for television commentary over here. That's going to be there. You won't be able to see the... and we're also going to put a whole bunch more television cameras in here. It's not going to be a one-shot deal. We were just specking out a... Oh, sorry. So sorry. Shh. You are listening to The Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Thanks very much for joining us. It's Friday, and we're talking about the president's gun control speech last night. The president said this. He said, "This is not about taking away anyone's rights. It's about protecting children." Really? If that's the case, then why are our schools so easy to walk into with guns, Mr. President? That's all I have to say. That's the question he cannot and will not answer. If you want to protect children, protect them. Don't protect them by making their parents more vulnerable to criminal attack or governmental attack, for that matter. You know, I've been thinking about that. I was saying that the government is trying to destroy the nation and so on. They represent our biggest threat to our rights. And that's true. Now, that's polling information. That's just not me spewing, conspiracy theory garbage like, I don't know, some other commentators. Let's put it that way. Alex Jones. Anyway, I'm not doing that. That's actual information. That most Americans believe that the biggest threat to their freedoms and liberties is the United States government, and they should feel that way. Look at what's happening right here. Shall not be infringed. I was listening to a commentator today on CNN who said who tied an individual right to bear arms to a well-regulated and organized militia. That is not what the Second Amendment says. Because he doesn't understand 18th century English, that's a clause. A well-regulated militia, that is a right of the citizenry in the states to have a well-regulated militia. An individual's right to carry a weapon is a separate clause, and none of those shall be infringed. He tried to put them all together. It's like the word inalienable. There is no such thing. There is no such word as inalienable. The word is unalienable. In other words, you cannot legislate against it. That's why it's called a constitution. These are things that we have to absolutely demand of our public servants. And he talked about the parents, and he said all of the parents of all of the shootings everywhere. Well, respectfully, Mr. President, you kind of missed that one again. Let me explain what I'm talking about. There was a father who lost his daughter in the Parkland school shooting in 2018. His name is Andrew Pollock. Several positive changes were made, according to him, as a result of a commission launched by Florida Republicans to investigate policy failures stemming from the tragedy. Mr. Pollock encouraged Texas Governor Greg Abbott to see through similar commissions in response to the recent school shooting in Uvalde. Pollock is the chief public safety officer of Byrna Technologies. He told Fox News Digital that Texas should imitate the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School Public Safety Commission, developed in response to the Parkland shooting that killed Pollock's daughter and 16 others. On that commission was the head of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, experts in security, lawyers, parents, police, sheriffs. And what Rick Scott did was put the commission together where they dissected everything leading up to the shooting. They went into the shooter's background, what happened in his life, what mental facilities he'd gone to, the counseling, social media. They dissected everything. You can't just look into the response that day. He reached out to Governor Abbott's office and offered to help organize the commission. Pollock said the changes should have been made after a 2018 shooting in Santa Fe, Texas, that left 8 students and 2 teachers dead, and suggested the Uvalde school district officials never read the Parkland report. They didn't read the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Safety Commission. It would have saved all those kids' lives, he says. Possibly. It's possible. The circumstance that he also goes into is this. He says, laws are not going to do it. We have all the gun laws we ever need. We have more gun laws than we should have. And every time I hear some politician say that the Second Amendment isn't absolute, I start looking at a government run amok. I want to ask this question. Do you honestly believe that the Biden administration wants to repeal the Second Amendment? That actually wants to disarm America? Yes or no, and why? Go ahead and take up the chat. Tell me what your answer is. I happen to believe that, they're working as hard as they possibly can to remove the right of Americans to disarm themselves, to defend themselves. We do have police officers in schools, and that's because of the abdication of school discipline. I didn't need a police officer. The schools did not need a police officer to keep me from misbehaving. We had a teacher or a principal with a paddle, and that's how that worked. I mean, you could be suspended forever for bringing a pocket knife. For those of us in Cub Scouts, that was kind of important because we walked everywhere with our pocket knife. But we had to make sure that we didn't have our pocket knife in our pants when we went to school, or we would, first of all, get our pants warmed, and then second of all, we'd be suspended. So now we are in a position where we go down to this idea that this incompetent government somehow is going to be able to do all the things required to make us, quote, safe, unquote. That is not safety. That is not safety at all. So there are people that are now asking, now it's time for the media. The media is openly egging on totalitarian rule because I guess for some reason it makes their jobs easier. I mean, all you got to do is take the press releases from the government and reprint them. I guess that's what they're doing. I don't have any idea why these leftist, progressive, socialist, anti-American fascists are continuing to be allowed to broadcast their filth on national television, but they do every single day. People say, well, wait a minute, aren't you doing the same thing? No. Everybody gets to talk here. Whether they do or don't is on them. The invitation is plain. Whether you agree with me or not is not a prerequisite to be on this broadcast. It's not. As a matter of fact, I really want to hear what you have to say. The last time a country got together, their entire population got together and decided to all agree on something, 6 million Jews lost their lives. We're not doing that here. Free speech works for everyone. The solution to speech you don't like is more speech, not less. But once again, we keep watching this left assault on all of our rights, not just the Second Amendment. All of our rights. But back to the media. So the media is egging on all of this gun control legislation and so on. For what? Their job is not to advocate for any kind of political anything. Their job is to report the news. They do not. So now we have people like Luis Villalobos, who is talking about whether or not we're safe as we walk down the street. In point of fact, we are. This is one of the safest nations in the entire world. And one of the reasons why is because we pretty much all get along. Except where politics is concerned. And as I said before, politics poisons everything. You stop looking at the volumes of, in the case of the FBI, you stop looking at the volumes of legal interpretations and law and so on right there on the bookcase. And then you start trying to determine the politics. You start thinking about politics instead of law. Well, it's the same thing with everything else. Same thing happened to the media. The media has decided to be politicians. And so they constantly report the din of American politics, which, by the way, is called propaganda. And it's how you destroy a nation. And they are doing it as fast as they possibly can. Reason I'm bringing this up is because there are all kinds of various laws afoot, or excuse me, there are all kinds of various stories afoot saying, are we safe? Are we safe? Yeah, we're safe. Except, by the way, where it comes to schools. And we are not safe in schools because our kids aren't safe in schools because the government would rather try to take everybody's guns away than make them safe in school. It's outrageous. Look at how much money the government spent to upgrade so-called safety during the COVID epidemic. Suddenly, every store in the world had a plexiglass screen that did absolutely nothing to stop COVID-19. In fact, all those things we did, the government spent trillions of dollars on it. All those things, and now COVID is more virulent than before. More people are infected, more people have died. It's a perfect example of what the government cannot do. No, you don't get to mess with the if you can't take care of a public health problem, you're not going to start messing around with the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights. You're simply not. Now, I've been hesitating about bringing this next subject up because, well, I was just making fun of Alex Jones because God, he sure deserves it, doesn't he? But I had to. But I was thinking about this, and I put a few things together. Let me explain what I'm talking about. Do you remember the Obama administration and Fast and Furious? That was a program started under the Bush administration to try to do something about straw purchases of American weapons going across the border in Mexico and then being used by drug cartels. Remember that? Do you remember that suddenly there was a whole bunch of people that were going and making straw purchases and weapons were purchased and they made it across the border? And the gun shop owners were calling the FBI saying, "Hey, wait a minute, this is a straw purchase. What do you want me to do here?" "Oh, just let it go because we're tracking the weapons." See, they set it up so that they would be able to track the weapons across the border. What happened when the weapons left the border? They immediately got lost. One of them was used to kill a Border Patrol agent. That was the Fast and Furious. And then it came out that the reason that they were doing that, the reason that they were letting these straw purchases go, is because they were going to go down there, they were going to capture all those weapons, and they were going to say, "See, we need stronger gun law." In other words, it was a conspiracy to create a predicate for gun law. Then we fast forward to, say, for example, the 2020 election. The re-election of Donald Trump would have meant further dismantlement of the leftist agenda for totalitarian rule in the United States, and the left panicked. They pulled out all the stops. They did everything they could possibly do to be able to win that election and remove Donald Trump from exploiting COVID-19 to essentially rendering the entire economy, just turning off the economy. They did everything they possibly could. They impeached him. He was sabotaged by both the Republican and Democrat Party. Sabotage. That's what was happening. And during that run-up to that election, what happened? Well, Black Lives Matter happened. From one end of the country, the cities were burning, from Baltimore to Los Angeles, Seattle, Portland, Oregon, burning. In many of those cities, the people running those cities, leftist, progressive, socialist, anti-American fascists, told the police to stand down. In other words, allowing deadly crime, 300 people lost their lives. They allowed deadly crime in the guise of social justice. In other words, allowing mayhem to reign for political effect. Allowing straw purchases of guns to go across the border for political effect, ending in death of a Border Patrol agent. Brian Terry was his name. Now we have, right on cue, during a very difficult situation, so we got Black Lives Matter. Now we're in a situation where, okay, the president's in trouble. His approval rating's under 40%. I've never seen that before. Certainly not with a Democrat president. And I'm wondering whether or not all of these shootings are being concocted. I have a couple of theories. I'm a little concerned about, say, for example, an 18-year-old kid with no job being able to drive around in a brand new F-250 and buy 2 AR-15s. I'm interested in a Buffalo shooting where a guy decided what he was going to do. Not Buffalo, that wasn't the one. A guy decided that he was going to actually commit mayhem using an AR-15 because he knew it was the political science of all of it. He was a leftist himself and was trying to further the agenda. Am I saying that the left of America is exploiting crime as a predicate for passing totalitarian law? Is that what I'm actually saying? Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is it possible? Or do I have black helicopters flying around in my underwear right now? You're listening to the Wells Report. I'm wondering if there indeed is a conspiracy afoot. Back with more in a moment.
Hello. Hello.
So a lot of people have been wondering why I do this podcast this way. Well, the reason I'm doing this podcast this way is because of a couple of different reasons. This podcast or this radio broadcast goes to a lot of places where radio stations can pick it up. If they need programming, they can get it. And let's see. When are we, that love of our freedoms and country, going to take our country back? The next election. And you're going to see it through. And you're going to make sure that the elections are honest. And the next time somebody says, we're not going to investigate this, you need to go down to City Hall and surround it and sing the national anthem. That's what you need to do. And that's what you have to do, Stan. How to start getting our country back? Well, that's how. Right there. Just in case you're wondering. But anyway, people were asking why I'm doing the show this way. Well, at some point, the actual podcast won't look like this. All of this dead space will be gone. I'm not talking about my head. I'm not talking about that dead space. Jeez. Yeah, you bet. Yeah, tell everybody to vote and tell them to follow their votes through. Yes, Anoy Guzman, that is a great point. It's amazing the FBI did a countrywide search. Oh, gotta watch the clock. So silly. So silly and so stupid. Better tighten up when we get our radio stations back. I'm just saying. You are listening to the Wells Report on Friday. I'm John David Wells. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Coming up next hour, we're going to spend some time about the United States president overstating what is better economic news. I'm glad that there is better economic news, but it's certainly not what the president said it is. We'll be talking about that coming up in just a couple of moments. So we are starting to have all these amazing mass shootings. The president's approval rating is down the tubes. They need something to change the conversation. We have seen leftist politicians exploit crime in order to further a political agenda. Fast and Furious during the Obama administration. All of the riots, the Black Lives Matter riots, from one end of the country to the other. And now suddenly we have shootings. Are these being orchestrated by somebody in the nether world? Is that what we're seeing here? One thing is for sure, we know it is not beneath the left to do exactly that. We've seen them do it before. Would they exploit deadly crime for their politics? Is that even possible? Or like I said before, do I have a black helicopter flying around in my pants right now? I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But I have discovered something in my 20 years, my over 20 years of doing the Wells Report. If something can be attributed to a malfunctioning or even malevolent government, and it can't be disproven immediately, maybe it's actually happening. Because there's so much propaganda and so much misdirection and so much dishonesty that flows through our American government like some sort of degenerate lifeblood of evil. It happens all the time. How can we trust anything anybody says, or how can we trust our own eyes? The American left will tell you to ignore what your eyes are seeing in favor of what they are telling you. Well, that's true for just about everything. You can't believe a thing the media tells you. You can't, unless you're just willing to be manipulated for political effect. Again, there's that word, political. The government of the United States is not supposed to be this important. It's not supposed to have this much power. As a matter of fact, the entire governance structure of the United States of America is based on non-governmental power, at least from a standpoint of the actual founding documents. So why is it that we're dealing with all this? Why is it? We're dealing with all of this is because they've been slowly taking our country away from us. Stan just said, when are we going to quit pussyfooting around and actually start taking our country back? In November at the ballot box. And follow those votes through. And make sure that the votes that are supposed to count actually count. When you have an opportunity to vote for a voter ID law, vote for it. If you don't have an opportunity to vote for a voter ID law, demand that your legislature pass one. If the legislature refuses, then work to the detriment of every refusing politician who is against voter ID law. Because just like when somebody stands up and says, hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, hell yes, we're going to take your AK-47, you say, hell no, you are never going to hold office in the United States of America. We're about to prove that right here in Texas with a guy who said that very thing. They are telling you that they are un-American. They are telling you that they believe the Constitution is wrong, the Bill of Rights is wrong, and they have absolutely no business in political leadership of this nation. Likewise, when you're in a situation where somebody stands up and says, there's not enough voter fraud to matter, they're telling you that they have no business in the job that they currently hold. Of course, voter fraud matters. They said, well, it would take millions of votes. No, in five swing states, it took less than 20,000 votes. Remember? So whenever anybody stands up and says, no, we don't need voter ID law, they are anti-American thugs. Remove them from office and use the ballot box and no other means. Use the ballot box. Get involved in your community. Make it possible for people who say all of these un-American things to get back to being an American outside of political power. Since they can't do anything with political power, since because they're basically incompetent in the first place. Not all of them, but most of them. They'll probably end up, removing themselves from society in one way, shape, or form. They'll do it all by themselves. And we should let them. Give them that opportunity. This is the Wells Report. Back with more in just a moment. Okay. So I'm going to go do something really fast. Dude! Kurt Chase. What are you doing, brother? Let's see here. I need that. And I need this. This. Okay. And I need this. Oops. Okay, good. All right. Okay, trying to mimic my voice? Yeah, that's funny. I'm trying to mimic your voice. Jeez. Hi, I'm Kurt Chase. Jesus. Trying to mimic my voice. Why, you want to sound younger? I'm sorry. Can't believe I said that. How's business, brother? How's it going? Well, hey, by the way, if you see Jay Shannon, tell him he needs to put me on his radio station. I have not been able to get in touch with him. I got in touch with him once. I think it was your fault. Anyway, so he may not ever talk to you again because, well, it's one of those things. Man, oh man. Kurt Chase. Great big stud. Okay. Closez-vous. Big steak dinner on me. Let's book it. All right. You got my number? I'm in. You going to go to the Roadhouse? What are we doing? I'm in. 30 seconds until music. Anyway, like I said, this podcast will be cleaner at some point. Right now, kind of messy because I'm still doing the radio thing. So hang in there. And 10 seconds, mark. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. We talk about the news. We analyze the news for fact. We comment on those facts and that news, and then we debate the commentary because I'm not the Oracle of Delphi. I don't know everything, which makes me, I think, completely different than anybody else you hear doing this job anywhere in the nation. It is Friday. Friday. When this one's done, we only have 2 more days left in the work week. Arg. Coming to you from temporary facilities in Fort Worth, Texas, it's the Wells Report. The President of the United States was touting some good economic news. There is good economic news. But then again, it's like this kind of news. You know, you just broke your leg. The good news is the doctor said it perfectly. There's a lot of healing to be done yet. According to Fox Business, the U.S. economy continued to see healthy job growth in May, indicating the labor market is still strong despite growing fears of a recession amid sky-high inflation and increasingly aggressive Federal Reserve action. Employers added 390,000 jobs in May, the Labor Department said in its monthly payroll report released today, beating the 328,000 jobs forecast by Refinitiv economists. The unemployment rate held steady at 3.6%, the lowest level since February 2020. That is not real. That is simply not real. Job gains were broad-based. The biggest increases in the pandemic-battered leisure and hospitality industry, 84,000. Professional and business services, 75,000. Transportation and warehousing, make that 47,000. Nearly every industry gained position last month, with one notable exception: retail shed 61,000 jobs. The president stood up and said, "My goodness gracious, we're doing great. It's the sign of a healthy economy." No, it's not the sign of a healthy economy. It's a sign of an economy taking a breather from the fall. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not the kind of guy that takes that takes good economic news and then tries to spin it for political purposes into being able to say, "Oh, this guy's crap." I don't have to list the economic misadventures of Joe Biden. I don't have to do that. All you have to do is buy a tank of gas. Yesterday, on my way back from the Steely Dan concert at the Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas, I stopped to get some gasoline. I had enough gas to make it home because I have this policy: if I have less than a quarter tank of gas, then I will go and I will get some gas. I'll fill up. But I'm not spending more than $5 a gallon for gas. Just not going to do it. And so what I decided to do was I put regular in my car. I put regular fuel in there. It works just fine. I kind of like the performance advantage of gasoline that burns a little slower, which is the difference between regular and premium, but that's okay. But I'm sitting there and I'm buying this gallon of gas and I spent $100. $100 in cash to fill up the tank of my car. That is not sustainable. That is not sustainable. The great Curtis Charles says $5 per gallon violates my community standards. Absolutely does. The market will exert itself. The gas prices will come down, but it won't have anything to do with what's going on in Washington or in Ukraine or in Russia and so on. But what is actually going to happen is that pretty soon all of this increase in fuel cost is going to hit you harder in the pocketbook than you think. Because everybody that's moving all those goods into the stores where you're shopping, there's a problem. They're going to be charging more for their trucking services, for their flying services, for their delivery services, because gasoline is too expensive. Prices are going to go up exponentially. We're going to look back at the good old days of 8% inflation and say, my goodness, that wasn't bad. It's going to break double digits. It has to. And gas prices leading the way. The White House says President Biden is not responsible for the inflation. He most certainly is. This nation was energy independent. Gas was less than $2 a gallon, less than 3 years ago. And suddenly, because of, government policy, we decided we were going to stop all that. We're not going to be energy independent. The president of the United States is going to fly to Saudi Arabia and ask the Saudis, to open up the oil reserves just a little bit more so that the United States president can have less of a political problem at home. They'll probably comply, but it'll cost us something. Strange thing about the Saudis. Strange thing about the Saudis, they always get something for their money. Or in this case, they always get something for their oil. And it's unnecessary. Why would the president fly literally halfway around the world to find oil when it's right under the ground I'm standing on? Because I live in Texas. Why in heaven's name would we do that? Well, the reason is because he wants energy prices to be through the roof. But energy prices equal inflation. And as we discussed yesterday on the Wells Report, that is nothing more than a tax on the people of the United States. The middle class. The one he said he was never going to raise taxes on. And it's not just some ethereal, vaporous connection between, say, for example, inflation and tax on the middle class. It's epic dishonesty. Because as prices go up, so do taxes. Taxes increase as the price goes up. So the higher the prices are, the more money the government, both state and federal, collect. So it's very, very profitable for government. And it is a tax on you, the middle class. And the dishonesty, the epic dishonesty of these people refusing to admit that. They knew exactly what they were doing. They exploited COVID-19 to be able to stop ships from offloading any kind of goods from around the world. Shortages ensued. Empty shelves on grocery stores. Prices went through the roof. Government collecting tax money hand over fist. We stop American energy production. Prices of fuel go through the roof. There is no way that we, the people of the United States, are not going to see double-digit inflation probably by the end of this year. There's no way. Gas prices are through the roof, and the president is responsible. And you can sit there and say, my goodness gracious, we got, what was it? I was going to do a little bit of math, which is not good. Let's see, 62,000 more jobs in May than we expected. 62,000 more jobs. 62,000 more jobs? Really? You can put 5 Major League Baseball teams together in games, and you got more people watching those games than job creation. Come on, people. Use your brain. 68,000 jobs, and they're touting this as a sign of a healthy economy. That's what the president says. And the reason is because the mainstream media won't call him on it. Because they're on board with Biden. That's why. And once again, nice if you can get it, but the mainstream media shouldn't be on board with anybody. The mainstream media should be the ultimate skeptic. That should be the case, but it is not. And like I said, The President of the United States says, hey, wait a minute. He's not responsible for inflation. Out of USA Today, Michael Collins and Joy Garrison, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen tried 15 months ago to shut down some of the economists' concerns that President Joe Biden's $1.9 trillion economic relief package would cause rising fuel prices. On This Week, ABC's This Week in March of 2021, 3 days after Biden signed the American Rescue Plan into law, she was asked, is there a risk of inflation? She said, quote, I think there's a small risk and I think it's manageable. Tuesday of this week, inflation is at a 40-year high. Yellen was talking on CNN, quote, I was wrong then about the path that inflation would take, unquote. She moved on to say, quote, the impact was unanticipated and large shocks, unanticipated large shocks to the economy, and supply chain bottlenecks boosted energy and food prices. It's not going anywhere. Energy prices are still through the roof. America is a transportation society, whether it's getting you from one side of town to the other or getting food from one side of town to the other. It's a transportation society. Real hard to do that without fuel. Well, you should buy an electric car. Oh, really? 300 people lost their lives in February of 2021 because there wasn't enough electricity. I think it's absolutely rich that we're going to have, that they're actually building these charging stations for cars powered by diesel generators. Are you kidding me? How about a gasoline-powered car that has an alternator that recharges its battery all in one smooth move? Unbelievable. So Treasury Secretary Yellen pleading guilty to the fact that she blew it when it came to inflation. Is this the hallmark? Is this the benchmark of what the Biden administration knows or does not know about the economy? If that's the case, they don't know jack diddly about the economy. Or his brother Bill Diddley, or his youngest son, Bo. Work with me. CNN had a poll out the other day. The U.S. public views of the nation economy is worse than it's been in a decade. This according to a new CNN poll conducted by SSRS. Many Americans also say they feel financial strain in their own lives. People are saying, there's not going to be any. I mean, we got 62,000 more jobs than we thought we were going to in May. There's not going to be a recession. Yeah, it's like living next to the ocean and saying there's never going to be a tsunami either. What are you, stupid? Better put that seawall up. And that's what people are going to be doing. They're not going to be spending money. I need Susan to have a more reliable car. We're not buying a car. Why are we buying a car? Because we don't know what the economy is going to do. That's how you get a recession. People start sitting on their money. There's no point in not sitting on your money. You have no idea what's going to happen next. The CNN poll reflects pessimism. Joe Biden, whose ratings for handling the economy remain sharply negative, causes a U.S. majority of adults saying policies have hurt the economy. 8 in 10 say the government is not doing enough to combat inflation. 80% of the United States, of the people of the United States, 80% say the government isn't doing enough to combat inflation. 23% of Americans rate economic conditions as even somewhat good. That's down from 37% in December and 54% last April. All these rosy-eyed estimates by White House mouthpieces. Oh yeah, it's a healthy economy. Yeah, that kind of overstatement is calculated and thus is a lie. They're lying to us about the economy. What in heaven's name are they doing? Well, I'll tell you what they're doing. They're mangling things. We had, by gosh, better stop them. Don't you think? This is the Wells Report, right before the weekend. Back in a moment. Dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. Dee-delete, 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 dee-delete. Okay. All right. Dominic Ferrero, Godfather, how are you, my brother? How are you? How's everything? Are you good? Are you good? All right, then. Dominic Ferrero says he's doing great, and he says if he was any better, he'd be me. Not so much. Not so much, my brother. I'm looking forward to seeing you. Good afternoon, Cleo. How are you? Yeah, man. So glad you're back. So glad you're back. We lost you for a long time. I wondered what I had said that made that happen. You are listening to the Wells Report on Friday. My name is John David Wells. Yeah, so we're talking a little bit about what decisions people make when inflation becomes a part of their life. Things get too expensive. Things are going to get more expensive as time goes by, and everybody can figure it out. You don't have to be some wizard of economics to be able to figure that out. In the case of the Biden administration, you have to suspend the imposed disbelief that politics brings to your mind that you're actually looking at a mess. Janet Yellen had to figure that out and had to do so publicly because she's the Treasury Secretary. Good. Yeah, I misread those signs. I screwed that up. Yeah, well, the rest of us know that. And so we're not buying new cars. We're not doing things that would keep an economy as vibrant as Joe Biden said it was today. It's good that we got more jobs in May than we were expecting, but it was only 62,000 jobs in a nation of 330 million people. Hello? Here's another bit of evidence that there is a recession afoot. Elon Musk is telling his company to stop hiring. He's put a hiring freeze in there. He went on to say that he has a, quote, super bad feeling, unquote, about the economy and wants to cut 10% of jobs of Tesla. That was an email to executives seen by Reuters. Shares of Tesla are 3% down in pre-market trading. It's probably fine now. I'll double check later. Latest news comes 2 days after the world's richest man, and now you know why he's the world's richest man, told employees to return to the workplace or leave the company. The email was titled Pause All Hiring Worldwide. Earlier in the week, another email, Musk said everybody at Tesla is required to spend a minimum of 40 hours in the office per week. In late May, when asked by a Twitter user whether the economy was approaching a recession, Musk said yes, but this is actually a good thing. It's been raining money on fools for too long. Some bankruptcies need to happen. That is a guy who knows what he's talking about. That's a guy who actually knows what he's talking about. And he represents the rest of us. It's absolutely true. You're doing less with your money than you would normally because your money is worth less because of inflation. It buys 8% less than it did before inflation started. Before the federal government started throwing gasoline on forest fires. It's insidious. This is what happens when it's like, yeah, you're kind of overweight. You're a child and you're overweight, so mom and dad going to withhold the sugar. Except that's not what the federal government did. Threw gasoline on a raging forest fire. Flem Coughley says, yeah, by the way, it was imported gasoline on a forest fire. Completely correct. What a mess. What a flippin' mess. And what do? Well, we make better votes. We make better votes when we have a moment to do so. We truly have to. We must. We must make better votes. If you're a Democrat, I don't want you to think about the horrors of voting for a Republican. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about voting for vote for a different Democrat. Vote for a neighbor instead of a politician. Politicians can be neighbors. But you need to elect. It's essential, in fact, that you start electing your neighbor instead of your favorite politician. Because this is not going to get any better until the people that are making it worse actually are out of office. The idea that, and by the way, there's something we're going to be talking about coming up in just a moment. It's about insidious leftism. I'm going to talk to you about insidious leftism, and it's right down this line. Right down the line of manipulation of energy for political effect. And we had, by gosh, better stop them. And the way to stop them is voting them out of office. That has other nice little dividends. You start voting people out of office, pretty soon people stop doing the things that got them voted out of office. Yeah, the people that actually survived the revolutionary bloodletting that's going to happen again in 2022, where a bunch of politicians from the Democrat Party are going to be sitting on the sidelines, and they should be. They should be. But we, the people, have got to solve this problem. People who say we don't need voter ID, gone. People who say we don't need a Second Amendment, gone. People who say we don't need a First Amendment, gone. Who knows about all that stuff? Well, according to Thomas Jefferson, the only people that know any of the answers to any of these questions are the American people, by virtue of their voting. please, by all means, prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that the framers were completely correct in their assemblage of this nation. Please do. It's essential. You are listening to the Wells Report. It's Friday. Yeah, we've got things we got to think about. And the Wells Report is back just in time for the 2022 election. We're going to give you the news. Yeah, I'm going to give you my take on it. But once again, if you disagree, by all means, help out. By all means, help out. Coming up, insidious leftism. This is so outrageous. You know, I don't know whether you live in a place that has been overrun by disaffected Californians, but I want you to understand something. Those disaffected Californians are going to be coming to us in droves. And I'm going to explain why coming up in just a little bit. You're listening to the Wells Report for Friday. Back with more in just a moment. People on the chat room, tell people I'll be right there. I'll be right back. I got to go do something. with 15 seconds to spare. Sort of. Welcome back to the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. Yes, back to work. What I'm going to talk about is leftist insidiousness. Leftist insidiousness. That is what I'm going to do. And it's essential we do so because the left is being insidious. John David, what are you talking about? So glad you asked this question. Craziness afoot. Indeed. All right. What leftist insidiousness am I discussing? Well, glad you asked. USA Today is reporting the following. Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles in California, has done something that you need to know about. So please pay attention. I've never seen this before. As the nation looks for ways, this is according to USA Today, as the nation looks for ways to cut fossil fuel emissions to meet ambitious carbon reduction goals, natural gas, the common household fuel the fuel staple, loved by cooks, is under attack by politicians. It's not just California, it's also Washington State. 77 cities and towns have banned or are taking steps to inhibit or discourage natural gas hookups. The city council voted last week to rewrite building codes requiring new homes and buildings to achieve zero carbon emissions, eliminating future natural gas lines. Climate change experts, whoever the hell they are, say the shift is necessary. It's a necessary part of the nation's energy transformation. Half of American homes use natural gas, including the one that I'm sitting in right now. We have decided, and this is something that the Wells family has done for, well, ever since we've had a chance. What we've done is we've always used natural gas to provide heat, whether that's our dryer, when we're doing cooking, when we use the heat in our house to generate heat in our house, we use natural gas. In fact, we won't purchase a home that doesn't have natural gas. When we purchased this home, part of the deal was to install natural gas lines for a dryer. And we have a gas-powered furnace. New York, according to Kurt Chase, New York City wants all natural gas out by 2025. No new permits will be issued. This is something you need to be aware of. What in the hell are these people doing? They don't have enough electricity to be able to make up for natural gas being taken out of new home constructions and new building constructions. They don't have it. They refuse to do the things necessary to have it. Yvonne Field is weighing in. She says her neighborhood is all electric. However, my neighbor behind me added a propane tank so they could cook with gas. Climate change experts, in other words, politicians, are shutting down natural gas use. Appliance burning natural gas make up 13% of U.S. greenhouse gas emissions, according to the Environmental Protection Agency. Remember when I was talking last hour about how executive branch agencies have been poisoned by politics. The thinking stops being based on the actual environment, and then it starts being focused on environmental political policy. According to the EPA, at least 95% of those emissions come from water heaters, which, by the way, also is another gas appliance in our house, water heaters, stoves, furnaces, and clothes dryers. Quote, one of the things we need to stop doing is burning fossil fuels. One of the places we can do that is in our homes, said Michael Wera, director of the Climate and Energy Policy Program at the Woods Institute for the Environment at Stanford University, California. The transition is not without controversy. Just as fast as some communities are rejecting natural gas, others are clinging. Utilities lead the charge. 21 states have passed laws stripping local governments of the authority to adopt zero-emission building codes. Without natural gas, and in the absence of sufficient energy sources, these are renewable energy sources, to meet the needs of consumers, people will have to rely on less efficient and dirtier options in their home for cooking, heating, and providing hot water, said Karen Harbert. She is the president and CEO of the American Gas Association. She needs to get, along with all of us, we need to support the American Gas Association to be able to do the things necessary to be able to keep American natural gas in the homes of people and politicians based on some stupid and ridiculous idea that the climate is going to kill us all. I guess it's 9 years now. In 9 years, the entire Earth is going to be completely destroyed by people with natural gas water heaters. The elimination, Karen Harbert, who is the president and CEO of the American Gas Association, says the elimination of natural gas in homes and businesses will be disruptive to customers and consumers, and, quote, will not enable us to reach our shared environmental goals. This change in the physical infrastructure of our lives is necessary to keep our international promises, but moreover to create a model for how to live in an affluent, energy-abundant country without causing grievous harm to the planet. This, by the way, in case you're wondering, takes us right back to that crazy person who was just discussing all of this, the climate expert I was discussing at Stanford. That's Michael Wara, not a girl, a guy. He says, my goodness gracious, we have to change our physical infrastructure. To what? For what? And why? Because the climate's going to kill us all? Baloney. It's absolute baloney. The new building codes vigorously encourage, incentivize, or require new construction not be piped with natural gas. Furnaces, stoves, water heaters, and dryers will be run on increasingly clean electricity. Increasingly clean electricity. Oh, really? From where? We keep getting alerts here, even here in Texas. My goodness gracious, you've got to stop using electricity because we don't have enough. We don't have enough electricity. And now what we're going to do is put more burden on an electric grid that can't do its job now? Seriously? That's what's happening, people. There's no science to back any of this up. No real science. Already, 40% of U.S. electricity is generated from carbon-neutral sources: nuclear, wind, solar, and hydroelectric. The amount has been rising steadily. Last year, wind and solar alone accounted for 13% of U.S. energy production, growing at the fastest rate ever. 13%. Fastest rate ever. They're not talking about how much energy it takes to create those windmills. at least with hydroelectric power, sooner or later, you start actually making more energy than what it costs to build the dam in the first place and all the power generation equipment required to generate that power. That's never going to happen with windmills. Never. Never going to happen. What's built today will affect efforts to decarbonize the United States for decades, said Monica Emery, energy team leader in California with the Sierra Club. Are these honestly the people they're listening to? The answer is yes. This is a small minority of crazy people that are trying to lead everybody else around by the nose, and now they're starting to affect building codes. This is called insidious leftism. We had better stop this. And we can do it by voting these people out of office. Any politician that listens to Stanford University regarding American energy, they don't have to worry about any of this stuff. Stanford doesn't have to worry about any of this stuff. They have an endless supply of money from leftist crazy people. Because with the leftist crazy people that fund Stanford, I mean, eventually they're going to run out of money, but right now they aren't running out of money, and they are affecting actual construction of buildings that are going to be serving Americans for years to come. And this gives you an idea of what the political control of energy looks like. It's just like the leftist control of American health care. The left showed their entire capability when it comes to running healthcare when the COVID disaster hit us. The self-inflicted COVID disaster hit us. Absolutely outrageous. Decarbonize the United States for decades, according to the Sierra Club. Building a house with a gas hookup bakes in the source of energy. Once installed, these appliances can contribute to 50 years of fossil fuel burning. Yeah, but we don't have to worry about 50 years of any kind of fossil fuel use because the climate's going to destroy everybody anyway. And what is all this based on? Well, international commitments, the Paris Climate Accords, a worldwide political swindle of people. Worldwide political swindle. Nobody is doing what is necessary to be able to actually achieve those goals. The movement to keep natural gas hookups out of new construction, preparing for what the U.S. government has pledged will be an all-electric, carbon-free future, began in 2019. It's gained momentum in more liberal states. You know, the states where everybody's moving away from. The states the states people are moving away from are the people that are leading this charge. The first such ban was enacted in Berkeley, California in July 2019. The ordinance required all new single-family homes and apartment buildings to have electric infrastructure. A federal judge rejected a California Restaurant Association challenge to the ordinance by 2021. Today, all electric building codes are in effect in cities and counties in California, Colorado, Washington, D.C., Massachusetts, Maryland, Missouri, New York, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Utah, Virginia, Vermont, and Washington State. All these leftist enclaves. These people are going to be freezing in the wintertime and baking in the summertime. They're going to find their states empty of people, which I guess is the ultimate way to reduce carbon, because people are made out of carbon. Therefore, if you get rid of people, you have much less carbon in your state. Well, you also have much less tax money. You also have much less prosperity, fewer businesses. This is leftist economics. And that's what Joe Biden is relying on for his economic understandings of things, which are, by the way, nil. There's no question natural gas will continue to be part of achieving our nation's energy and environmental goals, says the American Natural Gas Association. The American Gas Association, yes. The American Natural Gas Association is completely correct. States that preemptively have banned such building codes in the United States are Alabama, Arkansas, Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, New Hampshire, Ohio, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. While people seldom make personal decisions about what fuel to use based on climate concerns, cost may entice them to replace natural gas furnaces, stoves, dryers, water heaters with electric, said Wara. This whole movement to ban gas in homes started. Natural gas costs $2.50 per metric million British thermal units. Today, natural gas costs $9 per MMBTU. I think more than anything else, that's going to change how people look at the issue. No, what people are going to do is going to start ignoring you with a ridiculous abundance of enthusiasm. Cleo Marchese, it's a loud vocal minority squeezing and running things for the rest of us. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Yeah, well, yeah, it's not going to work. But you need to know that these politicos are beginning to screw up the nation. That's what I mean. Los Angeles. Outrageous. Insidious leftism. Absolutely ridiculous. I'll be right back. Hang on. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Thanks very much for being a part of our show today. We're talking about insidious leftism. And insidious leftism is everywhere, and it is awful. And it is based on politics. We were just talking about how there are some 77 communities that are stopping the installation of natural gas resources in new construction, both in buildings and in houses. First of all, it's none of their business. If I want to have a gas water heater, I should be able to have a gas water heater. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, especially if that basket is powered by electricity. We have learned the hard way. People have lost their lives because they banked on reliable electricity. I purchased a generator, enough to power this house, not because I do my radio broadcast from here, but because I bought that generator to be able to protect myself when the lights go out. This government is completely out of control. We have heard in the last few weeks that these people are absolutely, positively, abundantly sure that we're not going to have enough electricity for the next few years. That's from one end of the country to the other. We in Texas in 2021, we dealt with that here because the Electric Reliability Council of Texas missed their estimates because they were working too hard on their Christmas bonus. And so what ended up happening is they didn't have enough generation. We ran out of electricity. We had rolling brownouts. We lived in the dark here. 1 hour of power on, 1 hour of power off. It was outrageous and it was nuts. And it's all because of these leftist crazy people. This insidious leftism that I'm talking about here. Somebody decided, what we can do is we have to raise a whole bunch of tax money for whatever government project we want our names on. By the way, those bronze plaques are incredibly expensive. And then because a bunch of politicians make a bunch of agreements to reduce carbon? Seriously? Carbon. Carbon is the new pollution? This is what happens when you clean up pollution. You have to have another kind of pollution or you can't get people to panic and give you money. Anyway, so now we're in a situation where we're doing exactly the wrong things. In response to political gobbledygook, we're actually changing our lives? You must be joking. These people don't have the right to tell me how I want to heat my house. It's a swindle. The whole thing is a swindle. We must vote these people out of office immediately. And by the way, it's not just energy. The next thing you have to do if you want a totalitarian society is you have to get rid of your political opponents. Today, a federal grand jury indicted former Trump White House advisor Pete Navarro on criminal contempt of Congress after he refused to comply with a subpoena issued by the House January 6th committee. The DOJ announced the indictment today. The department has previously indicted former Trump advisor Stephen K. Bannon for contempt of Congress. The FBI arrested Navarro this morning. In his first court appearance this afternoon, he said he was on his way to Nashville for a television appearance in the morning. The FBI team let him get to the airport and try to board a plane before putting him in handcuffs. Navarro said during his court appearance he was put in a jail cell today. I was a distinguished public servant for years. No one ever treated me in this fashion. Correct. He says the prosecution is acting in bad faith. Well, if bad is a read that political, yeah, They're operating in political faith. You're listening to the Wells Report. Back in a moment. Sorry about that, guys. I've changed the timing of the broadcast, so I'm a little bit confused as to exactly when everything comes back. So I know at the top of the hour that I will be back on the broadcast. So, but the other times are a little bit askew. So please do forgive me for that. Sorry about that. I'm back. Hello. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 1, 2. God bless propane. Yeah, if I was John Cornyn, I'd try to replace Mitch McConnell too. Mitch McConnell is a menace. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Greetings. My name is John David Wells. We bring you the news. We analyze the news for fact, if there are any. Not as easy as you might think. And then what we do is we make commentary, and then we debate the commentary. More about that coming up soon. Let's see. Ginny Bayless has joined us from Montana. What a great state that is. Beautiful. Good to have you here, don't you know? So a while back, I was still going through the readjustment of leaving my mission on the Texas-Mexico border. What happened is that some insidious, crazy person, while we're using the word insidious, some crazy person in the Supreme Court leaked a draft opinion that discussed the Roe v. Wade decision being overturned by this Supreme Court. There are a lot of reasons why you should do that, okay? And the reason is because it's bad law to begin with. It's actually unconstitutional, and I don't know why the Supreme Court got away with it, but it's unconstitutional, and since their job is to interpret what's constitutional and what isn't, it came down to politics. And when I talk about how politics permeates and then poisons everything it touches, it reached into the Supreme Court in 1973. And somehow, vaporously, a new law was created, a new right was found that made it possible for a female to end a pregnancy whenever she chose. There were laws in effect that stopped them from doing it in the most hideous ways. But that being said, that became, quote, the law of the land. Well, that's not how we make laws in the United States. We don't make laws based on the legal musings of 9 jurists who did not get elected. That's a judicial oligarchy. That's not what we do. We have legislatures comprised of people who have been voted into office by their neighbors, and they make law. So that's on its face right there. That's one reason to overturn this Roe v. Wade decision. As soon as that draft came out, people on the left started melting down. And the reason they started melting down is because this is a huge defeat for leftist politics in the United States. That's what it is. And so the news media, being leftist from top to bottom, immediately picked up the drumbeat, the din, whatever you want to call it, and started saying, oh, no, wait a minute. All things are going to be terrible if this passes. Let me give you a couple of examples. We talked about this a while back, but let me give you a couple of other things, okay? Listen to this. This is where the media short circuits itself and implodes. Headline, USA Today. Catastrophic. Women in the military could face huge obstacles to abortion if Roe is overturned, said lawmakers. Really? And then right under that, it says current federal law prohibits the Pentagon from funding abortions or allowing the procedure at military facilities. So the headline is immediately contradicted by the explainer beneath it. Women in the military could face huge obstacles. Well, if current federal law prohibits the Pentagon from funding abortions or allowing the procedure at military facilities, the obstacles that they are going to face already exist. Hello? See, this is absurdity. This is hysteria. This is panic. Do you really want people who do all of those things, who generate all of those things, to be in charge of anything? They're melting down. After being sexually assaulted at Camp Pendleton in 2007, Erin Kirk went to the base medical facility for medication designed to prevent pregnancy in an emergency. The base didn't have any Plan B pills. She had to go to the nearest Planned Parenthood for help. Done. Kirk, a former Marine, is now worried about how other female service members will cope if Roe v. Wade is overturned and they face an unwanted pregnancy. She has influential backing on Capitol Hill. Really? Having spent a little bit of time in the military, I can assure you that there are plenty of hookups that lead to this particular decision making that don't have anything to do with rape or sexual assault. And since we've seen sexual assault morph from actually being taken in hand and being assaulted, from that to, well, he made some comment about my breasts, sexual assault is, it's kind of out there in the open as to just exactly what we're talking about here. We don't have anything, we have no idea what Aaron Kirk went through. All this article says is after being sexually assaulted. And by the way, I know a whole bunch of men that have been sexually assaulted in the military as well. Just saying. Okay? So anyway, she went to the base medical facility for Plan B. She couldn't find any. She went to Planned Parenthood instead. Okay. Last I heard, you could buy a Plan B at any pharmacy. This is not a problem. As a matter of fact, they were debating for a long time how old a little kid had to be able to buy a Plan B without their parents' permission. Anybody that could walk up, if you're tall enough to get to the counter, you can buy a Plan B. This is not a problem. She is concerned about other female service members, how they're going to cope if Roe v. Wade is overturned. Nothing is going to change. Nothing is going to change. Instead of the federal government circumventing the Constitution to make a law that technically doesn't exist in the first place, based on a right that is absolutely absent from the Constitution of the United States, what's going to happen is that people are going to be living in states that make their decisions. And instead of actually worrying about something that happens, they're worrying about what could happen. That's what this is. And what does that mean? That means that what I'm talking about is hysteria. Oh my God! Top lawmakers, unnamed, say the repeal of Roe v. Wade will leave women troops in many states without access to abortion or other reproductive health services. What are they talking about? Reproductive health services. Led by Representative Jackie Speier, the Democrat from California, more than 70 Democrat House members plan to introduce a bill to reverse the Pentagon's ban on funding abortion. Not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Current federal law prohibits the Pentagon from funding abortions or allowing the procedure to be done at medical health care facilities except in cases of rape or incest, which takes us back to the beginning of this. So if she was raped, well, then what ended up happening is that the military medical facility that she went to go get a Plan B pill was unstocked at the time, and it's not going to be that way anywhere else in the United States. You can be treated if you have been raped. In other words, what this is just a confused, convoluted mess of hysteria. Okay? The repeal of Roe would trigger laws banning abortion in as many as 26 states. Many of those states, including Texas, host large military bases such as Fort Hood, home to 40,000 soldiers. A 2018 RAND Corporation survey said that women in the military have a slightly higher rate of unintended pregnancies than their civilian peers. They will face bigger obstacles in accessing abortion off base, and Speier, who chairs the Armed Services Committee panel on personnel, says that many service members won't be able to take the time needed away from their jobs and families to travel thousands of miles off base and out of state, all at their own personal cost. The fallout for our service members and their families will be catastrophic, as is the threat to our military readiness, morale, and unit cohesion. Huh? Once again, this is overstatement writ large. Absolutely ridiculous. There's more. According to Yahoo Finance, overturning Roe v. Wade could lead to a poverty shock. If the Supreme Court overturns the nationwide right to an abortion this month, it seems likely a political earthquake could ensue. Abortion protections have been in place since the court's Roe v. Wade decision in 1973. Polls show roughly 2/3 of Americans think it should stay that way. Well, what you're saying is that's not honest right there. I'll explain in a minute. The explosive leak of a draft opinion from the Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization earlier this year reveals that the Supreme Court, now dominated by conservatives, is preparing to invalidate Roe and leave abortion laws up to states, which is the way it should be. The United States of America, not the Federal Republic of America. About half have indicated they'll partially or fully ban abortions, which is bound to generate storms of protest. Yeah, storms of protest. Yeah, sort of like Black Lives Matter, I guess. This is not going to render abortion illegal in the United States. And I'll go as far as saying it probably shouldn't. But what there has to be is there has to be some cogent idea as to when that procedure is appropriate and when it's not. And that takes us right back to, when does life begin? Women absolutely should have control of their own bodies. But should they absolutely have control of somebody else's body? No, even if it's growing inside them. Right? You see, we have to know when life begins. Many people, they believe they know. But I'm not talking about from a standpoint of belief. I'm talking from a standpoint of legality. And so military women will be it'll be a catastrophe. Catastrophe. Let's talk about catastrophe for a moment. Catastrophe. 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 An event causing great and often sudden damage or suffering, a disaster. Not going to be a disaster. I mean, there are not a lot of pregnant soldiers in the first place. Once again, catastrophe. That is overstatement. Somebody said something funny. Most Americans believe that abortion is morally acceptable, according to USA Today, and should be kept legal, according to a new Gallup poll released yesterday, showing a surge of support for abortion rights as the Supreme Court debates whether to overturn Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade is not a law. Roe v. Wade is a court decision. The idea that there is some sort of right to abortion has not been codified. It has not been codified. In other words, there is no law that provides for it on a national level or anywhere else. So in other words, the fight over this court decision exposes the fact that a court decision has been turned into law basically by the American left and the news media. That's not what we base our laws on. And it, by gosh, better not be what we base any future laws on. Are you getting my point yet? You're listening to The Wells Report. Back with more in a moment. Thanks for joining us. I agree, Gail. I agree. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number is not available at this particular moment, but will be hopefully next week. Cross your fingers. I know I am crossing my fingers. Let's hope. So, American polling regarding Roe v. Wade and abortion in general. Most people believe that abortion should be legal. Abortion will continue to be legal whether Roe v. Wade is the law of the land or not. It's actually not the law of the land, it's a judicial opinion. If indeed, all these people that are screaming at the top of their lungs about how everything's going to implode if we don't keep Roe v. Wade on the books, need to start working with their Congress and get laws passed that actually guarantee all these things. The president of the United States said it. He called on Congress to codify all of these rights, but nobody did anything. Why? Why? I'll tell you why. Because right now, nobody has to make a hard and fast political decision backed up by their votes on the record forever. They don't have to do that. They can say whatever they want to. But what they can't do is they can't be held accountable for a vote that they made on this particular issue. All these people that are surrounding the Supreme Court of the United States, you're talking to the wrong people. You need to go talk to your representatives. There's also another reason why nobody wants to do anything about this, because it will be voted down. All these polls and so on and so forth, we have no idea how these are being taken, how the polls are actually being taken, what questions are being asked. Like, for example, there's a difference between Americans who believe that abortion should be legal and Americans who believe that Roe v. Wade should be upheld. Those are two different concepts. Roe v. Wade is not a law. It's a decision. If you want a law, go through the process in making the law happen. But you see, the problem is that then people have to vote. Suddenly people have to make a decision. And then people who make decisions, especially when they're politicians in Washington, D.C., get held accountable for those. And they're worried about what's going to happen to their political career if they vote the wrong way, whatever that is. See, that's the issue here. Once again, politics, poisoning and permeating everything, destroying everything it touches, distracts from the actual decision that has to be made. Holding these people's feet to the fire and saying, okay, if you want this right, make a law. It can be done. It can be done. And you, by gosh, you better get going on it. But they won't, because, gosh, then you have to actually put it on the record. It's an ugly mess. An absolute ugly mess. And we need to fix it. Now. So there's also something else in here. There's also something else. You know, there are people that say that a female, let's see, hold on. Let's see if I can find it here. The percentage of those who feel that abortion should be kept legal under any circumstances is the highest ever recorded by Gallup. Under any circumstances. In other words, why you are seeking one. That leaves out something that's incredibly important. Not the circumstances of trying to seek an abortion, but the circumstances under which that abortion is performed. And that's conveniently left out of this article from USA Today. The reason that we have this mess to begin with is because there were no standards as to when that could happen. Yeah, there were some. That's not the case. There were some standards. But once again, not codified by law. Not codified by law. And suddenly this supposed health procedure becomes infanticide. And that's why all this happened. They brought it on themselves. The only good thing about and this is worth it. The only good thing about all of this is that sooner or later we're going to actually get to a decision, and not made by the Supreme Court. We're going to get to a point where this gets fixed. You solve the problem simply by determining when life begins, and it's all over. Yeah, that's what happens. You have to be responsible. You know, women talk about how they want to be able to do what they want to with they have to have control of their own body. Then control it. If you don't want to have a child, don't have a child. We know how this works. If you want to have control of your body, control your body. Is that so hard? Is that so tough? I'm just asking. And why this is a national issue is embarrassing. It's not embarrassing. It's a tragedy that gets played out over and over and over. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. Coming up in just a couple of seconds, smart alecky little Texas kid update. Yeah. One of those little kids did something amazing again. I'll explain in just a couple of moments as we take you through Friday. First week back. Actually, first half week back on the Wells Report. Yeah, we're making some mistakes. We'll get them ironed out, and we'll be back with more in a moment on the Wells Report. Thanks for joining us. Yeah, I screwed that up. Yep, smart alecky little kid update. Smart alecky little kid update. 10. Let's see, I need this one over here. I redid everything. So this is the third day that I've done this show, and I've done it in different studio configurations each time. I see what you did there, Flem. Yeah, I see what you did there. Yeah, do it. If you want some help on that, let me know. Save you a bunch of money. You are listening to the Wells Report for Friday afternoon. I am John David Wells. If you're watching this on a podcast, make sure you hit the bell so that you know when we're going to be back on live. It'll happen on Monday, sometime in the afternoon, say around 2 o'clock Central Time, 2 p.m. Central Time. Make sure you put a like out there as well. Put a like out there as well. And then also, while you're at it, share it with friends that you know and love. We're doing something different here. We're doing the news, the issues of the day. We are analyzing the news for fact. We are commenting on those first two categories, news and fact, which are oftentimes very different. And then we debate what the commentary is because I don't know everything. And if I did know everything, I still wouldn't impose what I think on you. This is your decision. These are your decisions to make. All I can do is tell you what I think. All I can do is give you information to make a better decision. That's what this show's all about. So there they were, the 2022 Scripps National Spelling Bee, Vikram Raju and Harini Logan failed to correctly spell two words in a row between rounds 13 and 18. At that point, the judges opted to institute the first spell-off. 90 seconds to spell as many words as possible correctly. The one with the most spelled words correctly would win the bee. Harini Logan, an 8th grader for Texas, spelled 22 words correctly. Vikram Raju, only 15 to become the 2022 champion. That would be the lovely Harini Logan. Officially, this year's winning word was moorhen, a medium-sized bird defined as the female of the red grouse. Moorhen, in case you're wondering, Moorhen. I would have been able to spell it anyway. Because I can spell, mostly. I spelled catastrophe a second ago. Logan was 14 years of age. She's an 8th grader. She almost didn't advance past the word meaning round on Thursday. She'd heard the tragic bell after her answer for pullation was rejected. So, bing, you have to know what the word means. Bing, you're gone. Well, then wait a minute. The judges conferred during a break and ruled the answer she gave could be correct, since it could mean to breed or to swarm. Head Judge Mary Brooks explained the ruling, and Logan, who only minutes earlier had learned of her reversed fortunes, returned to her seat on stage. Logan rolled through the rest of the bee until her stalemate with Raju, which led to the spell-off. It was like a round of Family Feud's Fast Money met the spelling bee. The typical question competitors asked the pronouncer, part of the speech etymology definition, were not permitted. Each word had to be attempted, no skips or passes. The speller had to press a buzzer before the next word appeared. We activated the spell off because it was the best chance to show the extent of the speller's preparations. This according to Dr. Michael J. Durnall. Clearly, they demonstrated deep capacity for the competition. She's in 8th grade, okay? She's in 8th grade, and she won the Scripps National Spelling Bee. And, oh, by the way, not only did she win the spelling bee, but she also is from Texas. So a little bit of pride there, and I just wanted to make sure that you knew about smart alecky little Texas kid update. And while we're on the subject of women competing at things, let's talk a little bit about Title IX. Title IX came about when people noticed that men in colleges had better athletic facilities than females. There were reasons for that, but, well, by golly, it's just not fair. So we have to have fair. And so what ended up happening is that they passed this law, Title IX, that forced universities to spend as much on female sports as they do on male sports. Now, if they had done the right thing at the beginning, they wouldn't be facing all of this. Like, for example, the USA Today article today talking about Title IX. Like at most four-year colleges, enrollment at Western Kentucky University leans female, while its athletic program skews male. 60% of its undergraduates are women compared to just 35% of its athletes. Despite the obvious gap, the Hilltoppers told USA Today they comply with Title IX by offering women athletic opportunities that are proportionate to the makeup of their student body. But they're not proportionate, not even close. A USA Today analysis found the school would need to add 254 women's roster spots, a shift that would more than double its current number of opportunities for women and require a wholesale remodeling of the athletic program to close the gap and come into compliance with Title IX. That Western Kentucky has so much ground to make up in providing equitable opportunities 5 decades after the passage of the landmark law banning sex discrimination in education is hardly unique. USA Today has found that 87% of colleges and universities are not offering athletic opportunities to women proportionate to their enrollment, according to the news organization's analysis of 127 public and private schools in the Football Bowl subdivision during the 2021 academic year. So, in other words, after all of this has been talked about and talked about and talked about and talked about, it's still not working. And by the way, when you heard me talk about what the NCAA should have done when it came to taking care of women's sports, what they should have done when Title IX got passed was start promoting the living hell out of female sports. They didn't do it. The reason that male sports get more support from universities is because they make huge amounts of money. You know, like football, for example. There is no female analog for football. Should there be? I don't know. They're doing it with women's lacrosse, I suppose. But football would break women in half, even if they were playing amongst themselves. So football is a problem. So what else could there be for them to play that should be promoted and should be supported? But what if, for whatever reason, they didn't do that? I don't care who you are, but collegiate women's softball is a great game. I call it girl ball. I mean, it's fantastic. Fast, really, really good. Women's basketball, on the other hand, well, they've got some work to do. They do. They've got some work to do. It's a much slower game. It's a much more strategic game, and they should have been promoting it that way. When it comes to basketball, by the way, I think that a female hoop should be 9 feet. I believe that the male basketball hoop should be collegiate male the collegiate male basketball hoop should be 11 feet. I believe the NBA hoop should be at 12 feet. That would be worth watching. But all of these things add up to not many people going to female collegiate sports. And that's the problem with Title IX. It ignores reality. It is a blunt instrument being wielded that, oh, by the way, is failing and continues to fail. And then there's this. All right? Then there's this. Speaking of female softball, let's talk a little about that. Want to know the impact of Title IX? Look no further than WCWS softball in Oklahoma. Edmond, Oklahoma. The 1976 Pontiac Grand Prix had lots of trunk space. Jerry Pinkston didn't consider it a must-have feature when she bought the metallic green Mammoth, but a big trunk was crucial when she took over as softball coach at Central State University, now the University of Central Oklahoma. Team did not have a home field. It used a city park. So it didn't have a field house or a locker room. It didn't have a storage building. It was the back of Pinkston's Grand Prix. Bats, balls, helmets, bases, of course, that was all in there. But so was the pitching machine, a gas-powered generator, the metal mat used to drag the dirt at the field. We had to hand pull the drag for the first year or so. That has changed. She retired from coaching in 1997, can look at her little slice of women's sports world and see big progress spurred by Title IX. The 50th anniversary of the landmark law is on us. And so most of these problems have been solved, but it's not going fast enough or going deeply enough or what have you. Title IX is good. I just think it needs to be handled by the actual universities better. And they don't do that. And then there's this. All these people render every argument about whether Title IX has done good or done bad, has been effective or has been ineffective. That's why I called this segment the Title IX fiasco, because it's been a fiasco. Been mishandled by the universities, hasn't been properly implemented by them, has been whined about, but nobody's ever really done anything about it. And then all of a sudden, the new cause celeb when it comes to athletics, female athletics, is transgender females. Born male, converted to female. The problem with it is that they have an unfair advantage. And suddenly people are saying, gosh, you know what? These females have an unfair advantage. Because they do. Title IX is being absolutely run off the road by this. If a genetic female cannot compete with a transgender female, there won't be any competition for females. Already a bunch of high school records for female track and field and any number of other sports are held by transgender females. So what do you do? Oh my goodness, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Well, here's what you do. You have male sports, and you have female sports, and you have transgender sports. That's what you do. Whether it's a genetic female becoming a male or whether it's a genetic male becoming a female, they all compete together. That's what you do. Why hasn't the NCAA done that? Because they're not thinking, that's why. They need to do that. Have transgender competitions. End of problem. But once again, politics, which poisons and permeates everything it touches. Now here we are with the outlandish shaming crowd taking anybody like me that actually says, hey, this is simple. Let there be transgender athlete games, transgender track and field. It can belong to the entire LGBTQ community. You guys can support it to your absolute and complete satisfaction. So why don't they do that? Well, how much revenue do you think a university is going to be able to get with transgender athletes? When you consider the LGBT community, the actual LGBT community is only about, depending on who you talk to, somewhere between 5 and 10% of the population. That's going to be a problem from a revenue standpoint. And of course, the question is, aside from the plain absurdity of the left's manipulation of Title IX, should the U.S. government even be involved in forcing collegiate women's sports down the throats of we the people in the first place? Or transgender sports? Or for that matter, male sports? Why is the federal government involved at all? If female athletes want a better, if they want a better example or want a better collegiate experience, they need to go to the colleges that have better collegiate experiences. It's called the marketplace. If journalists want to crusade for female sports, transgender sports, then what they need to do is they need to start covering all those universities that actually do have all those sports. But once again, there's a problem. What's that? Television revenue money. I mean, think about this for just a couple of seconds. Are you going to watch transgender gymnastics? Think about it. What do? You see, if indeed they create transgender sports for major colleges and universities, then it will be abundantly clear what the audience for that is, both electronic and in person. Likewise, so what happens is that suddenly we get a real picture of who supports this stuff and who doesn't. Once again, accountability must be avoided at all times. We can't have any reality when we can manipulate unreality to political effect. This, indeed, must change. You're listening to The Wells Report on Friday. Back in a moment. Yeah, there won't be enough support. There you go. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number 8. I'm sorry, I almost gave you the telephone number that doesn't exist anymore. I will be giving you a telephone number next week, assuming, of course, that Frontier Communications gets their crap together. They took over this neighborhood. That, remember, they made one of those sweetheart deals that, Verizon used to have it. Verizon was great. It really was. And then Frontier took over and immediately started canceling parts of the agreements and all kinds of other things. And it really kind of made a bunch of us mad. And then their customer service was lousy and their actual technical execution was lousy. And the other day I said, I need two telephone lines installed in this room. Oh, we'll be right there. Make sure somebody's there. So we made sure somebody was there. And they never showed up. So we will have a telephone. I've already arranged for, I've even paid for it. Now if I can just get it installed, that's all I need to do next. Today, aside from being Friday, is National Donut Day. That's right, National Donut Day. There are all kinds of really cool little Donut Day things. Freebies, BOGOs, all kinds of stuff. You can get a free donut at Krispy Kreme or Duck Donuts just by walking in the door. Dunkin' Donuts will give you a free coffee to wash down that cruller if you buy something else. Got to check the fine print. This, by the way, from USA Today. Here's hoping by the next time National Donut Day rolls around, see what they did there? The Associated Press will have capitulated and changed its official spelling to donut so we don't have to keep doing it both ways. The actual spelling of donut is D-O-U-G-H-N-U-T. Donut. Because I don't know why they put nut at the end of it, but it's a ring of dough. It should be a dough ring. Dough ring. See what I did there? Anyway, they're trying to turn it to donut, D-O-N-U-T. I don't see any reason why we can't do that. All right, so here's what's going on. If you buy a piece of Carl's merchandise in the store at Carl's Donuts Las Vegas, you register for a chance to win a classic dozen donuts every week for a year. That's Carl's Donuts. The Dapper Donut. Get a free box of powdered and cinnamon donuts with any purchase. Duck Donuts. Visit a store for a free cinnamon sugar donut today. Dunkin' Donuts. Buy any beverage and get a free donut. Honeydew Donuts. Download the app. Get a free coffee with any purchase every Thursday in June. Krispy Kreme. My personal favorite. Get a free donut of your choice. No purchase necessary. Buying for the office, buy a dozen donuts or 16 minis and get a dozen glazed for $1. Yeah. While we're on the subject of Krispy Kreme, don't forget every Wednesday through Labor Day is Beat the Pump Day, which means you get a dozen donuts for the national average price of a gallon of gas. Get a sense of how much you'll pay by checking AAA's gas price index. Lamar's Donuts. Post a photo showing how you enjoy your donut using the hashtag HowIDonut, D-O-N-U-T. And you'll be entered to win free donuts for a year. Winner will be chosen today. Legendary Donuts. They put a coupon in USA Today. McDonald's. Pay 99 cents for any premium roast or iced coffee when you buy through the app. Shipley's Donuts. Purchase anything, get a free glazed donut. A free glazed donut. The deal runs from 5 a.m. until noon. Tim Hortons. Customers who register for Tim's Rewards and buy a donut through Tim's app or online can unlock a free donut. Voodoo Donut. Pink frosted in honor of Homer Simpson. Are $1 on National Donut Day. There you go. Donuts. Guess what I don't eat anymore? Donuts. I don't know whether you've noticed this or not, but I left a substantial portion of myself on mission. I lost a bunch of weight while I was there, not because they didn't feed me. It's not. I lost a bunch of weight because, well, I stopped. I don't know. I started walking a lot more. I mean, there was a lot of real walking. I'm just saying. So I'm going to have to vicariously enjoy your National Donut Day because I don't get to enjoy Donut Day. I also don't get to enjoy mashed potato day. I don't get to enjoy sweet potato day. I don't get to enjoy black-eyed pea day, although that's not nearly as bad because that is, by the way, a bean, not a pea. I don't get to enjoy a lot of things. I eat salad and meat. Salad and meat, meat and salad. I drink water. Water, meat, salad, and that's how I lost a lot of weight. I'm not going to tell you how much because, I was kind of a pig. So there you go. Flem Coughley says, cake ball day. Yeah, why not? So that being said, my friends, I want to thank you very much for being here as the return of the Wells Report has happened. I am back. Once again, I'm going to finish this week as I started it by thanking the great James Parker for being so cool as to sit in for me while I was busy down south on the Texas-Mexico border. We'll get some more of these technical issues ironed out, and we'll get everything fixed up and ready to go, and we'll have that for you on the next opportunity for you to see this broadcast or hear it, which will occur at 1400 hours Central Time or Sierra Time Zone on Monday. Until then, get plenty of rest, have some fun, relax. And I will see you next time for another edition of this radio broadcast. It's the Wells Report. Okay, beloved darlings, that's all I have. God bless you. Thank you. And I will see you later.